This is our drama class final presentation, group project, part 1. So Sam, thanks for talking to me. First question, and the general topic, what does it mean to be an American?
Well, to be an American depends on who you ask. Some people say that being an American simply requires that you're born here. They have a point, but other people argue that being an American requires that you believe certain ideals or that you agree with certain ideas on which this country was built. Democracy, a democratic republic, voting as part of a public service, elected representatives representing the people. I tend to believe in a mix. For being an American to me means that you're born here and you believe in due process and elections and many of the political processes that were intended to serve the American people. Now, we can get into many arguments about how well those processes work nowadays or whether they've been influenced by corporations or money, but I tend to believe in due process and elections and the voice of the people, so I like to think that that makes me an American.
So it's much more than just living here, it's living by the certain ideals set down by our forebears, such as liberty and democracy.
And everyone who's come since, any administration who's contributed, such as establishing civil rights laws or, certain legislation to provide greater opportunity for people of all classes, races, both sexes, etc.
So how does that make America different from other lands you visited or lived in?
Well, confession time, I've only ever lived in America my whole life, and even though I've been to many different states, I've never visited another country. But looking at the history of America and looking at the history of other countries, we are very similar to other countries in some ways, and in other ways we're very unique. Many of the ideas that the Founding Fathers used when they were setting up this country were ideas that take you all the way back to the classical period, democracy, which was, many of the ideas of democracy were set up in ancient Greece, for example. But of course, democracy nowadays is very different than it was back then. And when people call the United States a democracy, we're a democratic republic, to be more specific. When comparing that to other countries like the United Kingdom of Britain, the United Kingdom of Britain is different in a few ways because it does function by similar principles, but it has a parliament while we have a Congress. It has a prime minister while we have a president. America is unique in terms that many new ideas, as well as old ideas that had not been talked about for a long time, were put into use when not only building this country, but constructing it over time.
So in a matter of ways, being American means to release us, that is, to live by a certain ideal, to respect the rights of democracy, freedom, and the simple individual right of every man to be able to carve their own destiny without overly adverse interference from government or state.
And not only that, but there's all kinds of opposition to democracy that can happen, whether it's racial prejudice or sexual or religious. And nowadays, I'm not going to go too deeply into it, but nowadays a lot of debates revolve around how corporate influence tends to influence politics, unfortunately. And many civil rights could be obstructed due to prejudices in the system or certain people who are in certain positions of authority, pressing their own personal views rather than representing their constituency, which is us.
Well, at least it sounds like we're in the right place to try and overcome these shortcomings. Numerous though they may be, it's nice to know that we always have our core values to fall back on, and we can always, even if we know that there are several differences between the idea and reality, by living by the ideal, we can make it more of a reality.
Yes, I'm not going to lie and say it's easy, but it's always possible. And really, that's one of the things that makes America America, is the fact that you have people who will keep trying as long as they can to achieve an idea. Because, up until the point where it becomes reality, it's going to be hard. But if you manage to achieve that, then that's the American dream. When people refer to the American dream, it's achieving that idea that you believe in.
Sam Tanner, everybody. Thank you for listening to this portion of our drama project. Alright, see how long that was.